Here's your updated housing report for the San Diego market. So what's been great this past, I would say, month and a half is we've overall seen the market trend upwards. We're now finding that we have multiple offers on properties opposed to having open houses where we have 20 to 30 people in there, maybe having 1 to 2 offers. So you're finding that we're having multiple offers. Still on the buying end, we're able to work with our sellers. Now it's switching to where the sellers are starting to get a little bit more what they want. What properties that are selling for over list price, where some of those closing cost concessions are taking a step back a little bit as far as what is asked, and timeframes meaning more towards the sellers. Inventory, I would say, is still fairly light. We're not having an influx in inventory. So I think a lot of buyers are in the mindset where rates are really starting to set in. I think a lot we're waiting on the fence. And I'll let, of course, Dan talk to this a little bit more in regards to thinking that there are going to be 1 rate cut or maybe even 2 by now. And I think that buyers are now understanding that they could potentially get 1 to 2, but more likely that may not happen at all this year, just depending upon how the market reacts. That's where I am, and that's what I'm seeing day to day, seeing on both ends, really on the selling end and also on the buying end.
As far as where I see the market, how it's been playing out, let's take the last quarter, for example. I have a different perspective on what Jared sees currently. And part of that is just because I get to see the data across California and I get to see the data across, specifically San Diego. So, with different metro areas, you're going to have different ebbs and flows. But as a market whole, the thing that has happened in the last quarter is really actually very simple. It's been a very up and down pattern with high swings to the up and high swings to the down. And that's directly a result of the interest rates and how they've been playing out over the last quarter. And what I mean by that is so the first part of the year, there was this heavy, we'll call it a positive outlook on that we were going to get interest rate cuts. There was a point at which they were talking that we would get a minimum of 3 and possibly 6 at one point. So within the first month of the year, by about beginning of February, we start to see that information come into the market and lower rates, which so then you got people into the market very quickly. So real fast, this thing can switch from, in your guys' words, a seller's market versus a buyer's market pretty quickly. You could literally be in the middle of the transaction and it switch. Right. It just depends. So right now, if I had to ask, if you're like, hey, should I sell my house right now? It's kind of a catch-22 because you may have that house sitting on the market, I think, a little longer than anticipated. But if you'd asked me this question 3 weeks ago, I would have had a different answer because that's how much the market has shifted in that short 3-week span. Now, when the interest rates do, and this is the thing I think we need to emphasize to all people, is when that interest rate comes and they say, hey, we're dropping by 0.25%. Let's say it happens in September. As soon as that happens, it will shift rates substantially very quickly. I can't emphasize that enough. If you want to sell your house or you're even thinking about selling your house, get Jared out there, have him start looking at stuff now. I'm not telling you to put it on right away, but I'm saying be prepared so that when that time comes, boom, you're ready to go. The same thing I would say with loans. If you're thinking about purchasing a home, I would get pre-approved right away. And that pre-approval is good for quite a while. You can extend it very easily so that you are ready to go, that when you do want to, that moment happens, you're able to just throw your offer in and close the deal in 14 days. It is all about quickness and preparedness. That's your only weapon against what is happening right now.
We're looking at things a little bit more narrow focus right now. In the past, we've looked at things almost, quarterly, and now we're almost looking at things monthly because of the way that rates have changed and how buyers and sellers have reacted from it. It's steering more towards okay, great. How are we going to prepare for, like Dan was saying, an interest rate decrease or an interest rate hike? And that is something that right now making sure that our clients are informed, but more importantly, also making good choices for our clients too, and not having them get into the contract and then really have a rate significantly higher, because that's really something that we're trying to avoid for our clients.
Look, I think the three things you want to take away from this conversation is, one, right now the market's very volatile. Okay, so it's going up and down. That's going to be tough to try to time that because it is very volatile. Two, it's a great time to actually buy right now because you're not having a lot of competition currently before these interest rates start to go down. Once they do, the market's going to flood. You're going to have 20 or 30 people there coming in with the offer. Number three, just call Jared. If you want to be prepared for this market the way it stands right now, calling him and getting prepared is the only way to do that. That's your best weapon against this market right now.
And lastly, what helps me in getting prepared when you meet with me is getting pre-approved. And then that way I know down payment and monthly payment to make sure that we're fitting it within your budget. Reach out to learn more.